Hello and welcome back to Clockwork Noodles. It's been a while, guys, and just to explain where I have been, no, I wasn't kidnapped by the Lord of Crime. I was suffering from laryngitis. I have not completely healed, so I'm going to be recording this in chunks, editing it later. To you guys, just keep listening. You don't have to worry about anything. For me, I'm just taking little breaks. I am trying my hardest to catch up on my backlog. This is the breakdown for Moriarty, episode 13, or it's episode 2 of season 2. I kind of feel like I'm going to keep counting up from 13, 14 kind of thing. To catch up the backlog later as well, there will be the episode for To Your Eternity going out later today as well. And then I think I'm near enough catching up on the backlog of work. So before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel or you're gonna miss out on information. You're gonna miss out on the cool anime that I am breaking down this season. I am also introducing a new feature. About halfway through the season, I am going to crown my top 3 OPs, EDs for the season. So it's going to be interesting to see what anime get on that list. And no, it doesn't have to be an anime I'm breaking down on the channel. It can just be an anime I'm watching on my own. And I'm also going to give you a halfway point. How do I think this season's going? What anime you guys should probably check out if you're missing it, and what you should and shouldn't sleep on. So without further ado, also make sure you are on the Discord channel so you can keep up with my recovery, how I'm doing, and when videos go up. And it's a great place to get notified whenever any work goes up on my channel. Let's get to it. It's not the biggest episode for me to discuss detail-wise. There's not too much going on. This main episode is set up. It's setting up our links with Irene and the Moriartys. It's trying to establish the big brain play with Albert. To be fair, there's probably 2 main characters this episode, and the 2 main characters who are acting super smart are, of course, Albert being super clever, and I think we're going to have to give it to Sherlock, and we'll talk about him later, because he's not the most obvious one for praise, because it's quite quick when we cover what happens with Sherlock. But the main character for today, the man who's probably going to be the thumbnail for today's episode, is Albert, and that's very good for my Albert fans, because I know I've got a few of you out there. We open with the confirmation that William is indeed aiding his brother Albert. We know that Albert has taken on the case from Mycroft to try and get the papers from Adler, and he's also been told to, or the liquidator in the end, he's been told to get rid of Irene because she's obviously read the papers as well. So it is just a quick reminder of their joint goal, and then that essentially goes to our credits. This is the second part of a scandal in the British Empire. It is also, if you are curious, based on a short story. Definitely worth reading. As I've been saying to many people who've been watching Moriarty the Patriot, if you are enjoying the kind of content and you're not a Sherlock Holmes reader, or you've never read any of the books, definitely give a little read. Definitely worth checking out. Actually reading the source material, so where the anime is drawing its references from. Let's open on our riddle game. So we're going to have a riddle game. There's a fair bit of foreshadowing, which I picked up on quite quickly on this game as well. And I like the fact that the game also draws on the current affairs that are on the streets. We've got the Lord of Crime becoming more and more famous. People are talking about him. But it does kind of suck. Can you imagine if you've gone out enjoying your party and then you're told you can't play anymore because you die? The rules of the game are explained to us, so if you are the first victim, you end up dead and you can't take part in the party anymore. Obviously, this is all a setup, but it is, of course, kind of sucky if you weren't part of the setup and it just was a game we were really playing. We are also told by the rules that the Lord of Crime will also die when he is revealed. This is an eerie line. And I also figured that whoever the Lord of Crime was definitely going to die this episode, which he does. But it might also be, again, that very heavy foreshadowing that when the game is up, when maybe Sherlock has finally caught up, perhaps there is a chance that our Lord of Crime in real will die. Within the books, Sherlock and Moriarty end up with our famous face-off at the Reichenbach Falls. So I think there is a heavy chance that this anime is going to end with a bit of some tears spread amongst her fandom at least. But again, I am a anime only, so you guys who are knowledgeable right now are going to have to bite your tongues and deal with it for now. This is our very Albert-centered episode. To be fair, he's been quite quiet recently, so I think, especially with the link to Mycroft, he needs to play a bigger role, and this is certainly it. In good old Moriarty the Patriot fashion, our bad rich guy makes himself aware to the audience. The audience is suddenly aware of who he is, and to Albert. He is indeed given the role of Lord of Crime, which means he's definitely going to die at the end, definitely foreshadowing at this point, and as well, because he's got a bit of a bad attitude, we can definitely guess that there's going to be no remorse in killing him because he'll fit all the requirements for the famous Moriarty demise, where he's probably got a history of steeped in blood and quite bad dodgy dealings, and he's a bit of an a-hole. So definitely going to be dying at this episode. But the question was, who was he going to kill? It was a little bit predictable. It was definitely going to be Albert. Albert was definitely going to be sitting this one out. But at the same time, I have to admit, who is the lady he is with? And I'm not talking about Irene, who makes herself shown a bit later on. I'm sorry to the Albert fans. He's definitely here with somebody. And I don't know who she is. But it's a nice butterfly mask. Got to give her credit for her style there. Irene Adler in disguise. Can we maybe say that this is a Sherlock cosplay? This is her inspired cosplay. Nobody questions why there are two victims. And Fred, I think you may have a rival for the Cosplay King Award. Last season, Fred won the award for Best Cosplayer. He was the one who really surprised us all with his ability to disguise himself. Irene Adler is making a play. Is Fred gonna keep up his role of Cosplay King? Who knows? But this is when we start to see the big brain play. The big, amazing brain play that Albert has come up with. And he has indeed arranged the entire party just to lure her out, but also show her that he doesn't mean her any immediate harm. Irene, if you go to my anime list, hasn't got a voice actor mentioned. I mean, she probably has one somewhere mentioned on a different site, but not on my anime list. I do think they have got a second voice actor very briefly, or they have edited the audio for this actor to make it sound a bit more masculine, because it certainly sounds a little bit masculine, and it definitely sounds like almost you could fool me into thinking it's a different voice actor. Albert tells her who hired him, obviously, admits, I'm working for the government, and he basically asks, will you be returning the papers? Where Irene starts to state her conditions. This also gives us a look at the character Irene, what her motives are, her simple conditions. I want you to ignore my crime, and I want to be guaranteed safety, because she knows she's in a very bad position. I think later on down the line, she even says that she didn't even look at the papers when she was stealing them. A famous line from the movie comes to mind right now. Are you in over your head, darling? Definitely one of those cases where Irene Adler is most certainly in over her head, and she is definitely aware of it. She knows she's in danger, and she needs somebody powerful to protect her. I was considering that maybe she stole it because she initially wanted Moriarty's attention, but I don't think that quite figures out. That's cold no. Albert's really cold no, showing us that he's not really going to be one to be pushed around by conditions. Plus, Irene isn't really in any position to be making conditions right now. Albert also realised that she has bitten off way more than she can chew, because he also understands that there's been no demands made. If she actually intended to do this in the first place, she would have had a bit more of a plan in action. Albert in this sequence is just amazing. He is playing a game of chess, and I love the way he starts to twist things when she starts to panic, where he says, I can save you, because she's looking for somebody who can protect her. In return, he obviously receives all the information of what is on the documents. And it is indeed a scandal for the British Empire, but not so much the royalty as we initially were led to believe, which I believe might have been part of his plan initially anyway, just to get her to tell him what exactly is on those papers, because he didn't know what was on them. He ends up luring Irene in a bit of a power play, and this power play is really, really impressive, because behind the scenes there's William, there's Lewis, they're definitely behind the scenes who are giving him a helping hand in the setup for this. It turns out that our Baron, bad boy, Baron Evil, the Lord of Crime, he starts to look really, really sick. Definitely adding to the idea that he's definitely going to be dying. And he literally meant that the Lord of Crime would definitely, literally die at the end of the game. And naturally, the Baron ends up having a dirty past, which is very curious because it also has a link to Irene. Irene says that she knew people who were killed, people who were harmed within the Baron's deeds. He essentially sets up an insurance scandal. He ends up burning one of his operas to the ground just to get the money, and he ends up killing innocent people. It's just very nice that there is a link to Irene, because it makes you wonder if Albert has picked this specific aristocrat because he knows there's a link to Irene, because he'll show her, I'm on your side, I'm helping you. This guy obviously killed people that you know. Here's me showing you that I can easily eradicate them, and nobody cares. There's nobody here that really cares if I take out one of the aristocrats. Right on cue, when he is found out and announced to the hall, he ends up dying, keeling over. But it's quite odd because not a single person seemingly came forward to point him out. We're not actually shown how the guy is figured out to be the Lord of Crime, but we can liken it and we can put it right down to the fact that it is all just a setup, and it is all down to Keikaku, all according to plan by Albert. We get our first bit of colour popping. We haven't seen colour popping for a while, and it's quite interesting because it's done in the similar ways that it's done to season 1, but it's got a slight change. So the colour popping, if you weren't aware already, or you are finding me for the first time, a colour pop is generally when the image is drained of colour, but one colour is left remaining. Mainly it draws an impact. In this sequence, all the colour is gone, apart from the wine that Albert is drinking. It looks like he's drinking blood, because that red is the only colour left. Red is the sign of danger. To show Albert consuming danger shows that he's not scared of the danger. He is the danger. It's that famous saying, I'm not sat in the room of danger. The danger is in the room with me. I like it. He's in control. The blue filter. Last season we got a lot of green filters. This time we have a blue filter. The blue filter, the fear that Irene might be feeling right now, that cold, detached, calculated nature of what's going on. The fact that this man has very, very calculated and performed this very, very scary power play where he's just outed somebody right in front of her. Somebody has died, and he's completely getting away with it. It's just an insane power play on his part. Albert introduces himself as the Lord of Crime, James Moriarty, sealing that power play as one of the best for the season right now, and successfully scaring Irene into his command. At this point, there's no doubt that Irene was ever going to go against him, and absolutely terrified because she knows that Albert could do that to her at any moment. It is just, however, a little bit odd that the body is left on the floor, just laying there. Even if they think it's part of the game, not a single person checked. Even the guy who was shown to be talking to him as he went down on the floor. The guy who was like, oh, I had never had any idea that it was you. Not a single person has actually checked. The location that Albert proposes to meet to hear Irene's decision is Hoxton. He says Hoxton Church. Hoxton is actually a real borough. You can go there. It is a borough on the outskirts of London, and I think I have the church that we're probably going to be seeing in this one here. This is the Victorian card for it. A lot of the time when new churches were built, especially during the Victorian period, you'd see really nice little drawings like this. But Irene is simply inspired by Albert. She might fear him as well, but she is inspired because he shares the same goal that she wants. This motivates her to wanting to work alongside him. We end up with a very explosive halfway point, which sets the tone for the last half of the episode, where we see Sherlock and co injured by a blast. Sherlock tells Irene to run, and he essentially just bluffs, which is quite cool. Seeing how they pull the bluff off and work together to get it off the ground. He bluffs that there was a man who wanted her to be handed over to him, and he also said that we didn't hand you over, and then he blew up the house, essentially. I like the way it's kind of put into play. Irene ends up falling for the bluff, where she ends up retrieving the papers, which is according to Sherlock's plan. He needed to know what the papers were, and now the papers are firmly in his grasp. Mum ends up scolding Dad about his excessive lengths to getting the truth, getting his goals. I mean, it was a tad explosive. I also can't see how Hudson would agree to this, because It's her house, and this is going to be at least a lot of money's worth of damage. And last I checked, Sherlock wasn't the most reliable when it comes to paying her. It does turn out that Sherlock has indeed figured out the puzzle pieces when it comes to Irene, which I wasn't initially expecting, because last episode it seemed that Sherlock was always adding up the numbers and never getting the correct answer. He always seemed to be a little bit off mark, off kilter. He ends up putting two and two together, working out exactly who is after her, why the government actually wants her in the first place. Sherlock reading the papers, and tension is then grown, where we get a transition straight to Albert explaining exactly what is on the paper. And it turns out that it's not quite what I was expecting to be on the paper itself. They are simply tactical plans that show British involvement in the French Revolution. The Moriartys really need to get their hands on these documents. Going to be curious to see if Albert does get his hands on the documents. Is he going to give it to Mycroft, and how is he going to deal with Mycroft? But it is simply a you're in over your head. Irene didn't even check the contents of the paper when she was stealing them. Where we get our Irene backstory that shows the similarities to Moriarty. She wanted to change the world. She used her abilities, her powers, her position to do so. She wanted to help the people who were not able to get to positions, achieve their dreams, to also achieve their dreams. And she looked past things like social standing and gender, which is quite cool. There is a lot of similarities with her and Moriarty, and I like the way that they're being drawn together, because it also makes the fact that she ends up choosing to take Albert's deal and also work alongside him, the Lord of Crime. It doesn't seem like it's coming out of nowhere, which is great, because I can't stand it in an anime which is so beautifully crafted, where sometimes characters make a decision based on nothing, and it does sometimes spoil the illusion. With this, Irene's motives are 100% clear. She is, of course, scared. She is trying to get somebody who can protect her. She believes that the Lord of Crime definitely can. I mean, she basically saw him kill somebody and completely get away with it. No repercussions. And she's also terrified that the same might happen to her. But at the same time, her goal not too dissimilar from his goal. It also explains why we saw her rushing in to save Kate in episode 1, seeing a girl being bullied by people higher up than her, when Kate was trying to do something, play for her dreams by her own standing, her own abilities, is something that she fully believes in. Sherlock's profiling finally fits, because the missing pieces of the puzzle are now in alignment, where Irene begs him to give her back the papers. Sherlock ends up giving her the papers, and of course there was no doubt that he wouldn't, but he does return them begrudgingly. We can see the pure irritation on his head, the foot tapping, when he knows full well that he has been lied to. Interesting to see that Watson didn't pick up on the initial lie as well, where he then again recalls that link to Mycroft, his brother, the man who is the government, where we get that cold filter, that blue filter once more, showing that cold, calculating, detached nature that is perhaps linked to Mycroft. Sherlock is fully aware that Irene has made a deal with somebody outside of the government, and the person who she's made a deal with is definitely able to evade the government. Therefore, the person that has made a deal with her, who can protect her from even the clutches of the government, has to be the person that he indeed is looking for. Here's a Watson shot for my Watson fans, because there's quite a few of you out there. Enjoy your moment with Watson for a moment. Sherlock has figured out that the tie with Irene is the link he's looking for, the link back to the person that he needs to find more than ever. Irene is now connected to the Lord of Crime. It's a tad slow episode, but it is mainly an episode to set up the details, set up the initial links with Irene and Albert. It is a good episode to show us as well the sheer level of genius that is Albert. Albert and Lewis do tend to take a bit more of a back seat to William's genius. I know a few people have said that the work that's been cut initially would have given them a bit more of a centre stage moment. Right now, we haven't really had anime only. I've only really seen William Moriarty taking the helm on these things. But this is our first chance to see Albert's genius, to see Albert in the spotlight. And I'm not I'm not hating it. I enjoy seeing the fact that Albert is taking centre stage here. I do hope we get a similar episode for Lewis at some point. Being a huge Lewis fan, don't really get to see him too much. It kind of sucks for me. This episode also sets up Irene's connection to Albert, and also it kind of ensures that Sherlock's motivation to follow her is now doubled. She might be able to lead him to William. There is a bit of a link going on. This is probably his closest to having any link right now, is to let her have the papers and see what happens. It's a possibility that he may follow her when she ends up giving the papers to Albert. Very clever Albert indeed. This is definitely Albert's episode, showing us that power play. He's using many of those famous William traits. That way that the whole game is set up is very reminiscent of what happened on the ship. But it's a great idea. It ends up scaring her into believing that the Lord of Crime can actually save her and protect her. This episode shows us more about Irene. We see that her goal really is just to be spared. She is looking out for number one. So if there is a chance that she may be able to get out of things and be alive at the end of it, she's going to take it. This episode is very important in that sense because it gives her motivations. Seeing Sherlock figure out Irene and actually working out exactly all the puzzle pieces is something that I wasn't really expecting him to do. But we don't draw too much information on it. But that's why I initially gave 2 awards this episode. But Sherlock's award is kind of overshadowed by the massive power play that is Albert. But he does get an award because he's eventually taken his time and actually figured out the missing puzzle pieces with Irene. It's also fun to see those explosive lengths that Sherlock will go to get what he wants. As a famous line again from the movie, does your depravity know no bounds? No. I love that line. It's one of those lines I love to pieces because it shows you that nothing is really out of Sherlock's lengths when it comes to trying to get what he wants. The contents of the paper are interesting at best, but I wasn't overly moved by them. But it is curious to see how William is going to use them if he gets his hands on them. And then that leads us to the big question. Is Albert going to lie to Mycroft? I think we definitely need to have a Mycroft episode at some point. So another really fantastic episode as we start deepening our plot, starting to get some more interesting character development for the characters along the sides. Albert finally having his moment to shine. Definitely going to have some happy Albert fangirls in the comments below, hopefully. And I think it was a good episode. I can't wait to see where we're going. It is a short story, so I kind of expect maybe the end of the short story is this next part coming up, and that should hopefully lead us somewhere. But the game is definitely afoot, and it's interesting to see how the Lord of Crime is becoming a bit more of a rumour around the upper classes and the classes in general. He's starting to spread. People are very much aware of him, as well as Sherlock would put it, to my dismay, my popularity increasing. Really enjoyed it. Hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.